average coach win percentage is since like 1950 is 43%. Our guy's winning 55%, which puts him right in the upper echelon of top tier guys.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Kyle Shanahan. We're going to get to this coaching list. I'm pretty sure Stefanski's win percentage is higher. Yes, Shanahan has postseason success. He also isn't in his first 4 years. Anytime Shanahan didn't have a loaded roster, he had a backup quarterback, guess what? He's 30 games under 500. Guess what Stefanski has coached with his entire time in Cleveland? Bad quarterback play, backup quarterback play, injured quarterback play. He has had zero stability at the quarterback position, but has won 55% of his games.
Yep. I had somebody tell me on social media today, they said Kevin Stefanski should be fired. I said, why?
Oh, man.
They said because you're telling me he could only win 11 games last year with all the talent on that roster? That's terrible. And I said, first of all, I now know you didn't watch any of the games.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, all that talent you were talking about, most of it was on IR.
Yeah.
26% of it.
And he still won 11 games, should have won 12 because we took week 18 off. People forget that. They're like, oh, you guys won 11-6. Probably should have been 12-5.
We started a guy at quarterback who hadn't even been on the team for like 4 days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, no, like
we
Browns
started PJ Walker.
Yes. The Browns are third or fourth in the league most in 11, one of 3 or 4 teams with 11 plus wins 2 of the last 4 years. Our coach has been coach of the year 2 of the last 4 years. Like, I didn't mean to take this off on this tangent.
No, it's okay because we're going to do the coaching list. So, I mean, diving into
Segue.
it.
But it's just like crazy.
It's a long segue, but
it's crazy.
Get to the point, brother.
How
Lead us in.
It's wild. Like, well, what has he done yet? We have as a fan base, we have no like perspective, context. We do none of that. It's just like he didn't win a Super Bowl. He sucks. Well, 31 teams didn't win a Super Bowl last year. I think there's still at least a couple good coaches and GMs out there.
Yeah.
I thought the sky was going to fall in 2001 when we made the playoffs. Like, I was just like, I can't believe this. And then we won a game, and I was like, oh.
And if you talk about being happy that we have stability, being happy that we've won 55% of our games, we have 2 11-win seasons, we have a playoff win. Oh, you're just settling for mediocrity. No, we're realistic about what the actual standard of success in the NFL is.
Well, and I posted the other day on Twitter, too. Kevin Stefanski at home over 4 years, 24-10. Yeah. 24-10, 8-1 just this past season.
So we got to figure out the road stuff.
Yeah, but I mean, we definitely have to figure out the road stuff, but that home record is phenomenal.
We take care of business at home.
Yes.
Which goes to
you're supposed to.
Changing the culture.
Yes.
It's not, you don't just come into Cleveland and get wins now. It's not a bye week if you're coming to Cleveland playing Cleveland.
No.
So we'll kind of segue into this top 10 coaching list, which I saw this like a week or so ago. And it's not the worst list that we've ever broken down on this show. Okay. But there's just a couple in here that made me scratch my head just a little bit. So they have the 2024 head coach rankings for the NFL. At 1, they have Andy Reid. At 2, they have Sean McVay. At 3, they have Kyle Shanahan. At 4, they have John Harbaugh. 5 is Mike Tomlin. 6 is Jim Harbaugh. 7 is Matt LaFleur. 8 is Sean Payton. 9 is Dan Campbell. And 10 is Mike McDaniel. I will live with everything 1 through 5 because I think those are all very good head coaches. Mm-hmm. Where you start to lose me is here at number 6. And don't get me wrong, I think Jim Harbaugh is a good football coach.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a chance he'll be on my top 10 list in just 1 year. But I don't think you can take a guy who's been out of the NFL now for a while it took him a long time to get it right at Michigan. And sorry to any Michigan fans, he really started to turn the corner when they got caught cheating. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I understand they won it all this year, even after they had to quit their cheating. And he built the program up. They were definitely in dire straits, and he added a lot of NFL coaching. I think Jim Harbaugh is a good football coach. Do not take that the wrong way. But it's just hard for me to put him in the top 10 of NFL coaches right now. He hasn't coached in the league in so long. You have no idea how he's going to transition back into the modern day NFL. I mean, he took the league by storm with Kaepernick in like the read option. Guess what? That's kind of,
that's what everybody does now.
Yes. So that one, again, I think Jim Harbaugh is a coach. I just wouldn't put him in. It's too early to put him in the top 10 for me. Mm-hmm. Matt LaFleur. People want to talk about they did win a playoff game this year. But he came off, he had Aaron Rodgers for 2 years, back-to-back 13-win seasons, bowed out in the playoffs. Okay. So if you think Matt LaFleur is a good coach, you have to think Kevin Stefanski is a good coach.
Sure.
Dan Campbell or Sean Payton.
What are we doing?
Listen,
what are we doing, guys?
I feel like before he got hired in Denver, I would have definitely said I wouldn't have put him on a top 10 list for the same reason I wouldn't have put Jim Harbaugh on a top 10 list in this first year. But the way he has handled Denver to me, I mean, maybe he'll prove us all wrong, but it has been a little bit circusy.
And douchey.
Since he's taken over in Denver.
Yeah.
He's been a little bit of a D-bag, even when it comes to talking about the former coaching staff.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Absolutely.
I feel like the way they did Russell, even if you think Russell can be corny, okay, and maybe he's a little bit fake, he's still a guy who's won a Super Bowl, been to 2 Super Bowls, won a lot of games. He's a professional. And by all accounts, he might be corny, but like a decent dude. Okay. And then
a decent quarterback.
Yeah. And then he wasn't the reason you guys were sucking last year. He put up comparable numbers as some of the top quarterbacks in the league last year. And to tell him you have to waive this, even though we agreed to it in the contract or we're going to bench you. I just feel like they did him so dirty. And Sean Payton is a huge reason behind this. Everybody talks about how much like he didn't like him. And then you start to look and it's like had all of his success with Drew Brees. And then Breeze left, and the Saints pretty much fell apart.
Fizzled out, yeah.
Okay, fizzled out.
Just fair.
And then his 1 year in Denver has been a little bit of a circus act. So that is a little bit of a stretch to me to put him at top 10. I guess what's the criteria? Are we talking about career? Because if we're talking about career, okay. But if we're only talking about like last 5 years, none of these guys, so you got Andy Reid, McVay, and Shanahan. Nobody else has any postseason success. None.
Sure.
So if all these guys are considered good coaches, they've done nothing postseason-wise in the last 5 years. Then you got Dan Campbell, I think, is a very good head coach. He can be, I think, he can be a little reckless in terms of his decision-making, but I also think that is what has turned him into a good coach in terms of his players buying in and making the culture and being like the tough, gritty team they are.
They're tough to beat because he takes those risks.
Yes. So it can come back to bite him, but I also think it's a huge reason why he's turned it around there. So it's a little bit like rocking a hard place. And then Mike McDaniel. And don't get me wrong, I think I like Mike McDaniel a lot, but I guess what I'm trying to say is how is Kevin Stefanski, the guy who's won 50% of the Coach of the Year awards the last 4 years.
That's a good point.
Not in your top 10 coaches list, but you'll put Mike McDaniel up there, who has a worse record. He's done nothing in the postseason. He's arguably had more talent. I mean, think about their wide receiver core.
Yeah.
They have their first-round quarterback that they drafted, and he's won less games, has less playoff wins. I mean, how can you put him at 10 and not Kevin Stefanski? How can you put Matt LaFleur in there and not put Kevin Stefanski? How can you put Jim Harbaugh? Kevin Stefanski's been Coach of the Year twice. He has 2 11-win seasons out of the last 4 years.
Yep.
So I just don't get that at all. Obviously, like the league and the writers and everybody understand how good of a coach he is. So whoever made this list, I don't get how.
So you two, where are you putting him then? Like, let's say this list is not there. Let's say you get to make your own list. And I don't care who's above him or below him, but where are you putting him? Let's say in a top 15, a top 10. You know what I mean?
So I think they obviously got number 1 right.
I agree.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's going to be much debate on that one.
But here's another thing, too, is if you're talking career, like some of these guys that you have to be talking about full career if Sean Payton's on there.
Right.
How's Bill Belichick not on there?
He's not a coach right now.
I guess.
That's true.
Gotta be
I guess. That's got to be, yeah. I almost forgot that he wasn't the head coach.
It's wild, right?
It's very wild.
I don't know. This does say 2024 NFL head coach ranking. So is this just what they're projecting the head coach to kind of do with their team in 24?
No, I just think it's how they rank the coaches coming into 2024.
Yeah, I agree, but
so I don't have any problem with 1. I don't really have any problem with 2.
Right. I agree.
To be honest, I don't have a huge problem with 3. But I just feel Kyle Shanahan gets so much just flowers and praise, and it's like nobody acknowledges some of the very like negative things about his
Big
tenure
mistakes.
and mistakes and squandering leads in Super Bowls and not winning games unless he has his, he has to have all of his starters to win the games. As soon as Debo goes out, they lose games. You know what I mean? Like it's one of the, like, he has coached an absolutely loaded roster.
Correct.
And anytime they've had injuries to that loaded roster, they've fallen apart and won 4 games.
I could be wrong, but I think their window is closing very quickly. Like, I mean, how many a CMC is great, right? But like, honestly, how many more years of CMC we really, really expecting where we're like, he's this elite talent? Ayuk wants out. The defense is kind of turning over. You're seeing already like some of those big names are out. I'm not saying that they're not going to be good. I still think they're going to be, especially in the NFC, they're going to be a tough team.
See, for me, my first problem does start with 3 because and as much as I hate the Steelers, I think Mike Tomlin should be up ahead of Kyle Shanahan because what
Mike Tomlin's
no matter what the Steelers have on their roster. That's the thing.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
With Kyle Shanahan's like, oh, he's got this great roster and they do so well, blah blah blah, or whatever. You talk about the win percentage not being what everybody thinks it is based on the hype. But Mike Tomlin, it doesn't matter what the roster is.
What do you think?
They're going to be competitive.
What do you think Shanahan's doing with Duck Hodges?
Duck Hodges.
You know what I mean?
That's
or
a good point.
Mason Rudolph, or the list goes on.
Kenny Pickett.
They're a team that I don't care. They could literally roll out the worst roster in the world. And I'm like, well, they're going to be at least 500.
This is the thing. That's a good side note. Pittsburgh's roster, like the last couple of years and right now, is, correct me if you guys don't agree, but their roster is one you look at, and if they don't have a good head coach, if they just have a mediocre or a shitty head coach,
bottom feeder,
bottom feeder, time.
He
just makes all that difference.
Yep.
In my opinion,
I agree.
Something Kyle Shanahan, I gotta fact check this, but
he's doing mad research over there.
I know
he has a 32-40 record as a head coach. A 32-40 record as a head coach.
Sounds like it's a little under 500.
I don't know, man. Are you sure?
That's what this says. I got to check this out. Anybody have this for me?
I'm looking right now.
That's not including playoffs. That's a regular season record.
Season.
Well, I'll let you guys look up the stats. Yeah. I'll just talk a little bit more. So for me, Kevin Stefanski, I would probably have him because, like you said, Blake, 6, Jim Harbaugh out of the list. Sean Payton at 8 out of the list.
Yep.
I mean, Dan Campbell has done a good job, but I obviously am biased toward Kevin Stefanski. So I would probably put Kevin at 6 or 7 on this list. So
his, this says his head coaching career, he's 64-51. Yeah, I don't know where they got this from. So he's won 55% of his games, Kyle Shanahan. Guess who else has? Kevin. He's okay. Now he's 8-4 in the postseason. He's got a lot of postseason wins. Again, with loaded rosters, Kevin has made the postseason. He wasn't even allowed to be there for one of the games.
Right.
And he had a lineman who'd never met the team and got his first team practice in a parking garage.
Blake I forgot about old Blake.
Okay.
Yep.
I've talked about this on the show before. Kyle Shanahan, before Brock Purdy was on the team, Kyle Shanahan was 30-plus games under 500 when Jimmy Garoppolo was hurt. When Jimmy G didn't play and Kyle had to play with a backup quarterback, he was 33 games under 500. Kevin Stefanski has won 55% of his games playing almost exclusively backup quarterbacks. That is the difference. So, again, I don't try to be a Kyle Shanahan hater, but too many people look at him with just rose-colored glasses. And I know I'm not the only one who thinks this, if you pay attention, because I have a friend who's a huge 49ers fan, and his biggest concern going into the Super Bowl this year was Kyle Shanahan's decision making.
I remember you saying that.
He didn't. Yeah. He was like, he doesn't think Kyle Shanahan is that great of a coach. So, and he's a 49ers fan who watches them, keeps up with them, everything. So I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I just think they freaking love him. They don't pay attention to any of the negative, I feel like.
Yeah, Jack in the chat, good point. He says Kevin bested Shanahan with P.J. Walker.
Yes.
Yep.
If I was making a list right now, Kevin Stefanski, if I'm just kind of looking at this where I'd slide him in, I'd probably, even if I left Shanahan in, because he's got the 8-4 postseason record, he's played in 2 Super Bowls the last few years, I'd put him probably like 6. I'd probably take Jim Harbaugh out, put him in there right in like the Matt LaFleur, because I do think Matt LaFleur is a good coach.
I do too.
Oh, yeah.
And what he did with Jordan Love last year, like they're kind of turning a corner. So I would put Kevin at like 6, somewhere in there. Obviously Jim Harbaugh, or not Jim, John is a great coach.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin's a great coach. So, but yeah, just some of these guys, like I understand. When I think of great coaching, I don't just think of who's winning when they have the best players. That's why I give Ryan Day shit sometimes when people talk to me about his win record, and I'm like, well, yes, he has 22 5-star players out there going against Illinois. Yes, he's going to win 85% of his games. How does he coach when it's even, or if his back's against the wall? That's where I see how good of a coach you are. When Kyle's had to coach with his back against the wall, or he's missing a key guy, he loses almost exclusively. When Kevin has to play down a guy, he still somehow figures out a way to go out and get 11 wins.
Yeah.
Do you think the Niners win 11 games last year if Sam Darnold has to play all the games?
And they don't have CMC? Because like we didn't have Nick Chubb.
No, they don't. They definitely don't. They started losing games just by losing Debo. They still have Brock Purdy.
And then you lose your 2 tackles and then your 3rd tackle. And yeah, I mean, what the Browns did last year, we say it all the time.
Very special.
Freaking phenomenal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Very special. I like that.
I think Kevin is a very good coach. I think there's a portion of the Browns fans who might not think so. And that portion just doesn't really know what they're talking about because they don't just give away Coach of the Year awards. They're earned, and that means other people, not just Browns fans. Like, it's legitimate and earned when other people not affiliated with Browns or Browns fandom are the ones who chose him. It's not like it was a vote in Cleveland to see if Kevin Stefanski should be Coach of the Year.
Right.
You know what I mean? And they've given it to him twice because both times he faced what should have been insurmountable odds, and he goes out and gets 11 wins. His first year taking over a dumpster fire, COVID, everybody's like, he won 11 games. There was no fans in the stands, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so there's no fans in the stands. That made having to coach over Google Meet easier. That had to make going out there and playing with a guy who had never met your quarterback before until 10 minutes. That made that easier.
What about that Jets game whenever we had no wide receivers?
Yes.
The entire people forget this. The entire wide receiver core was out for that game because somebody was exposed to COVID or whatever.
Yes.
We had nobody.
Jarvis.
Yeah.
So that was basically
the first game Jarvis had ever missed in his career, wasn't it?
Basically an automatic L.
Yeah.
We were basically handed by the league a loss before we even went in, and he still won 11 games.
And we still almost won that game, if you remember.
Yeah.
It was a close game until I want to say early 4th quarter.
You make a great point, and it's a good idea to just remind everybody that in 2020, Kevin Stefanski came in, like you said, met the team over Zoom, did the entire offseason program over Zoom, and he's never been a head coach before. It's not like he was Jim Harbaugh coming into that type of situation where I've been a head coach in the league before. I kind of know how this goes. He's a rookie head coach coming in doing this. It's the first time anyone's ever had to do it this way, and he found a way to do it. I don't know. I think he's a very smart guy, and I think he can adapt, and he's got it going on.
And here's some people will give us shit online for defending Stefanski, saying like he can do no wrong in our eyes and all this stuff. No,
we're pretty critical.
We've been critical of Kevin Stefanski before, but here's when you do enough good things and you do enough right, you start to earn trust. You start to earn like some leeway in terms of, okay, he made this decision. He's made a bunch of good decisions before. So if he happens to make one bad decision, I will not crucify him because he has data and experience and knowledge, and he's built the trust with me that if one bad decision isn't going to ruin it. If he goes an entire season and makes 50 bad decisions and we go 2-12 or 2-15 because, okay, that trust will be gone. But he's earned the ability to make a bad call sometimes, just like every other coach in the NFL.
We were very critical of Kevin even earlier this year, talking about, okay, some of these play call decisions in certain points of the game, what is he thinking? Is he making bad decisions? And we had Jake Burns come on because we're not just going to sit around and continue to blame Kevin for things without, trying to figure out what's going on. Jake Burns comes on and tells us, based on film study, all this stuff about Kevin. Yeah, he's running kind of an antiquated offense. But if you go back and look at those plays that we were questioning and criticizing, they were there.
Yeah.
The players watched
open.
every single one of them.
Like Jake basically came on and was like, listen, in theory, these are working. So, which tells me it worked. But he was like, we need to spruce it up to get current. I think that's hopefully what Ken Dorsey
And that's what the
do.
entire revamping of the coaching staff was all about. Yeah. Ken Dorsey and all these college minds coming in. I think 2023, as long as we keep healthy in the primary positions,
24,
sorry, could be a very, very special year again.